Now it's time for Whispers, your number one source for all things paranormal, with your hosts, Jordan Klein and Nick Queen, and produced by the lovely Lola Miller. Whispers is brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours at the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville. Unforgettable, historical, educational.
We have no music today, so...
Oh, I didn't even know we were...
just for right now. So go right ahead.
We're actually on the air. Hello, welcome to Whispers on AM 1600 WKKX, then Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Sorry, it's all kind of... Did not even know we were on the air, and all of a sudden, Lola was like talking to my headphone. And... If you notice, it's me doing the opening, Nick Queen, lovely Lola Miller over in the production booth. Jordan is not with us. He's actually downstate. His band's on tour. As everybody knows, he's in a Christian band, plays the bongos. They're doing a camp down in Ripley, West Virginia. Then they're going to be moving on into different areas. I think they're going into Mingo County, doing a couple of different churches. But he will be back next week. Not sure if Lola's going to be back. Lola, you going to be back next week? No? Okay, yeah, Lola won't be here next week, but we will have somebody. Joining us also today in the studios is John Schuster. He was here a couple weeks back. Say hello, John. I'm not sure. Howdy. Wow, your headphones aren't on. Lola, can we get his headphones on if you don't mind? I'm sorry. Or not his headphones, his microphone. Sorry about that. Go ahead, try again.
Hello.
Hello. How's everything going, John?
Going great, brother. Going great.
This is your second time with us here. What do you think? Are we crazy?
Oh, yeah. But I like it. It's fun.
Oh, good. But we do have a good show today. We're going to have Lawrence Joseph talking to us about 2012. Are we all going to die? Pretty much is what we're going to, December 21st, 2012. Is the world going to come to an end? What do you think? Before we get him on the air, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Do you think we're all going to die?
Well, that's the Mayan calendar.
Says that. Oh, but I don't care what the Mayan calendar is. Do you think we're going to die?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? It's a good possibility. The way everything goes these days, I think we're all gonna. It could happen. It could happen. And then we're also gonna be talking to Scott Norwood, talking about John Teeter, time traveler from the future, coming back looking for an IBM 5100 PC. Don't know why. We're gonna ask him, find out what's happening, and supposedly he's having some more government problems. They're trying to shut him down again. So. Can't wait to get into that with him. Lola, we have. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Everything's a little crazy here. We're actually switching over. We're moving into. I want to say the 21st century, but Linux was also this century. We're actually moving away from our Linux computers, which were kind of clunky, kind of messed up, and we're moving to XP professional computers. At least what I'm staring at right now. So all of the computers and the gentleman's in the office right now actually working on that as we speak, switching us over. So it'll be great. But Lola's getting a guest on. We'll move on to that. So very good. All right. Well, Lawrence Joseph, the author of Apocalypse 2012, he examines why both ancient sources, contemporary science, both pinpointed as a pivotal, perhaps cataclysmic year in human history. We'll also discuss potential disasters that might take place. Lawrence, you with us?
I am.
Now, do you go by Lawrence? I know on the book it says Lawrence. Do you go by Lawrence or Larry? Which do you prefer?
Larry.
Larry?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, you can call me Nick. So.
Okay, Nick.
Okay. So you wrote Apocalypse 2012. So I was asking the gentleman that joined me today, pinch hitting for the other guest, whether he thinks we're gonna all die December 21st, 2012. What do you think? I know you said Apocalypse 2012. What do you think the chances are?
Oh, I think the chances are very remote that we're all going to die on December 21st, 2012.
How about a good portion of us? There's always survivors.
I prefer to look at it as a year-long process rather than that particular date.
Oh, okay.
And I also, I'm emotionally incapable of grasping the possibility of megadeath on the scale that some folks who write about 2012 seem to predict. So I'm just going to go with my heart on that and say that I just believe that the year will be unprecedented in many ways, quite possibly until molten catastrophe, but just one to remember for the ages, and that's I prefer to proceed that way.
Now, you said that it's going to be a year-long event. When do you think exactly? I mean, because, everybody, the calendar ends, the Mayan calendar, on December 21st. When do you think this is going to go on? I mean, when do you, because it could be, we could be in the process of going towards that right now, or, is it something that, we're still waiting for? You think we're in the process right now?
Well, I think we're in the run-up, but I think it would be kind of a little bit too vague and coy to say that it's that we're currently in anything that remotely resembles the end of time or the beginning of a new age, as the Maya predict, or anything that resembles global catastrophe. No, I think it's if not specific to that year, at least it profoundly commences in that year. And let me make a few clarifications.
Sure.
Lots has been attributed to what the Maya predicted, and all they really said was that December 21st, 2012 would be either the end of time or the beginning of time, but in any case, it would be a transition into a new age. It would be the birth of a new age, and like any other birth, it would be accompanied by lots of joy, blood, and pain. And one of the things that I undertook to do with my book was to clarify just what the ancient Mayan prophecy was, because you see a lot of folks, you go on the internet or wherever, and they'll say the ancient Maya said, and well, how do you know? Are you an ancient Maya? I mean, people have undertaken to clothe their own doom prophecies or whatever they believe in the guise of ancient wisdom, and it gives them more legitimacy, although legitimacy is false. So one of the first things I did when I started to write my book was I went down to Guatemala and met with two Mayan shamans, worked with them for a little while, and Carlos and Gerardo Barrios, who themselves had gone around the ancient Mayan kingdom, the former kingdom, and spent a good 20 years speaking to sages and elders and other shamans just to ascertain just what the prophecies were. And, maybe it was that somebody way back then predicted 2012 was going to be a Lulu, and it kind of floated to the top. They did their due diligence, which is why I chose to work with them. They were great. And they clearly state that, yes, 2012, and particularly 12/21/12, is central to the ancient Mayan prophecy. But they're a lot better at saying when than what's going to happen. It makes for an interesting cultural combination, because the Maya are timekeepers. They firmly believe that date is of profound significance. What's going to happen on that date, they speculate about it, and as well as the rest of us are open to doing that. So they're good at the when. The what is still open to question.
Now, okay, a couple questions here then. I'm looking here on your website, apocalypse2012.com. You have a couple of different things listed here that you think might be happening. And some of these I know I've seen the news lately. Storms on the sun. I mean, we've had, at least as long as I've been alive, I'm 30 years old. I can remember 3 times where people thought all the satellites are going to get destroyed, by this, solar flare. That's more or less what you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, I'd like to talk. Let's stop at that, because the solar activity is the crux of my argument. What I believe is something that we really have to fear and prepare for. Sure. And if I could tell you how I got involved in that, I'm the chairman of a small advanced plasma physics research company, which is headquartered in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And we have a patent an extremely hot furnace. Basically, plasma is energy in gaseous form, and if you squeeze it too tight, you get a hydrogen bomb. But if you squeeze it just tight enough without squeezing it too tightly, you get a very, very hot flame, which is designed to completely destroy without any toxic residue the most hazardous biological, chemical, and eventually nuclear wastes we know of. So that's what we've been working on. And the principal scientist, Dr. Roger Remy, came to me one day late in 2004. He's French and Algerian, Moroccan, kind of a mixed background. And he says, the sun is making mayonnaise. Shut up, Roger.
Mayonnaise.
Yeah, what does that mean? And in his vernacular, that meant the sun is in tumult, is having a breakdown, is behaving in ways that indicate that it's having problems. And of course, my first response was, shut up. I mean, the last thing I need to do is start worrying about the sun. You know, I have 2 young kids. Everybody has enough to worry about day in, day out without thinking that the sun is going bluey. But Roger's specialty, and he is the designer of the patent that we have, his specialty is plasma physics, and the sun is one giant ball of plasma, so I couldn't dismiss his observations. So mostly just to try to dismiss his observations, one evening I went on the NASA and European Space Agency websites and saw that the sun had indeed been having more sunspots of greater ferocity and frequency than that was predicted. And the only astronomers' consensus was that the next climax of these storms would come in 2012. The sun follows pretty predictable 11-year cycles, and the next climax is coming in 2012. And on impulse, I Googled just 2012 just to see what would happen, how you do, and fell down this kind of new age rabbit hole of beliefs about 2012, and they were interesting, but not my taste. Just not something I could relate to stylistically or emotionally. But I saw at the bottom of it all was some really impressive ancient Mayan astronomy, not astrology, but astronomy. Just folks who, without telescopes or computers or satellites, not even a lens, had meticulously charted the movements of the heavens and saw the heavens as a great series of clocks, and just had devoted century after century of study to this, and had gotten a sense of what they felt was the rhythm of the heavens and as it related to us. So it was the coincidence between their predicting that 2012 would be the end of time or the beginning of time, but a great pivotal moment. The coincidence between that and the contemporary science of 2012 being the next climax of solar flares that got me onto the investigation and led me to write my first book.
I mean, it makes sense because the Mayans were, and all the different ancient cultures were using the solar system to make, to keep their time, following the way the stars were going and stuff, that perhaps maybe they had noticed something that was happening with the sun, and was marking it.
Yeah.
I mean, the one question I always come back to, why could it just be possible that they just ran out of room or only recorded up to that date or something? Is there any indication? Yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions. John, you said you had a question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah. Is there any other people that have predicted that 2012 other than the Mayans? That the end of the world is coming.
That's an excellent question, and I've done a lot of research into that. You will see in the middle of November, there's coming out a giant Hollywood blockbuster feature film called 2012, which has as its premise that all or virtually all ancient cultures and mythologies agreed on 2012 as the end date. That's a very good premise for a fiction film, and I expect it to be quite a good film, but it is not accurate in fact. However, neither is it accurate to say that the Maya are the only ones who predicted it. You have in North American, Central American, and South American indigenous cultures, you have a lot of the Hopi even the Mohawk and a number of groups in obviously closer to the Maya kingdom, the Aztecs, and you have even down in Bolivia, you have 2012 popping up as the same basic end date. Now, when I saw that, and it took a lot of digging, I thought maybe it was an error that had propagated from the ancient Mayan prophecy, and could kind of spread regionally. So it could all be traced back to the ancient Mayan prophecy, and in fact, I may well be, it may not be. I couldn't confirm or deny that. So one of the things I did for my second book, which is coming out next year, was I decided to go as far as I could to the other side of the world and talk with shamans there. Specifically, I went to Siberia and the Siberian-Mongolian border and worked with shamans there. They have the word shaman is in fact a Siberian word, and they have a great tradition there. And I figured if those folks came up with the same conclusion that the Maya did, derived it independently, from their own practices and studies, then it would really be time to get out the crash helmets, because that would be an important confirmation for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is that they do not see 2012 as the great end of time or end of cycle for the world. The bad news is they seem to agree quite wholeheartedly that it applies to the West. So take what solace you can out of that. Of course, there are a number of other traditions which don't concentrate so much on when the end is going to come as to what the end will be like. I mean, the Book of Revelation, for example, has its calendar. Its calendars are pretty hazy. There's 1,000 years here, there's 1,000 years there. It doesn't seem so much focused on the when as the what. Sure. And as I said before, the Maya are more focused on the when than the what. So one is forced, I think, to try to match up the strengths of the different cultures. Them who says what's going to happen, and them who says when. And the Maya certainly seem to be the strongest predictors of the when. And as I said, it did spread regionally throughout many related but not geographically contiguous cultures. So, they had to spread for some reason other than just proximity, I think.
Now, going back to, I guess, the closer to what scientists are saying, some of the possible cataclysmic things that could happen. The one that always, and I was actually watching a documentary on it, on something that might happen, the Yellowstone supervolcano. That possibly there, at Yellowstone National Park, that there could be a volcano that rises up, destroying a huge area, not even as bigger than St. Helens and so forth. Can you tell us anything about that?
Oh, sure. Mount St. Helens is an ordinary volcano. It's a regular conventional volcano, good size. But what's under Yellowstone is a caldera. It's completely underground, and it's quite a different kettle of fish. It's much larger. The mass of magma becomes lava when it reaches the surface. There is about the size of the city of Tokyo, and in fact, the fact that it existed in such proportion was only discovered by NASA observation satellites when they just did some infrared photography and saw this unbelievably large pool of magma up there. Now, it goes off around every 650,000 years or so, and it is about 650,000 years since it last erupted, or so geologists seem pretty much firmly to believe. The question is, what sets it off? I mean, there's not, I don't believe, some alarm clock in there that, just one day the thing finally just hits a point and booms. It's in the red zone right now. I don't think anybody would really argue that, but the red zone could last millennia. So the question is there's anything that's going to happen that could trigger that explosion now or soon, 2012 or thereabouts. I mean, if it came in 2011, 2013, it would be kind of an academic argument to say it wasn't, precisely on time. And so I was curious to know what's the relationship with solar flares, and I want to get back to that subject because
we're getting close to actually time for a break. One last quick question. I was one of the things I noticed was that also December 21st is also the time of the winter solstice in northern hemisphere, summer solstice, which is is there anything where that would relate to 2012, the destruction scenario?
Well, I mean, it's December 21st, 2012 for the Maya is the time when the sun eclipses, that is to say, itself between the dead center of the Milky Way galaxy and the Earth. And that eclipse has spiritual significance for the Maya, perhaps also scientific significance for us. Do you want to take a break?
Let's go ahead and take a break. We'll leave that hanging out there, and when we get back, we'll talk about sun, the solar system, all kinds of crazy stuff for December 21st, 2012. This is Whispers on AM 1600, WKKX, and UPRN.
The former West Virginia Penitentiary housed some of the most violent criminals in history. Many of the prisoners who lived there also died there. It is known for being one of the most bloody institutions in the United States. Don't miss your chance to experience the former West Virginia Penitentiary. Your tour will consist of an astonishing 90 minutes that offers an awesome history, a touch of art, cold hard facts, and an education of the justice system. Tours start 11 a.m. Tuesday through Sunday. For more information, go to www.wvpentours.com or call them at 304-843-4146.
This isn't creepy stuff.
Well, aren't most of our topics kind of creepy?
They are. Good pick.
Not only our hosts, but the topics too.
I never killed a person in my life.
Not yet.
Hi. My day's getting really close. Let me tell you.
We gotta get a little out of here before she does hunt some people down. This is the music she's gonna play in the background as she sneaks up on them, putting the knife in their back.
I'm grateful that we've got new computer systems, but it's just always difficult because everything has to be. And you know how I am about computers.
For the listeners, when they were, all of a sudden you hear Lola's voice and my voice and no music, and we're trying to. This is the only song they left us.
No.
They knew we were coming. They're like, just throw that on.
Well, and that's really no one can figure out really that we're not using like the Twilight Zone or something from Halloween.
Well, if you ever do, I want the Danger Zone.
Welcome to the danger
highway
zone.
to the.
I get it.
I'll get the glasses.
Sing. That's okay. Don't sing.
Well, someone put on the chat room. I was mentioning we didn't have. Well, I comment. I'm like, that's not going to happen. We'll lose so many people. They'll cancel our, syndication. It would, people would eyes and ears bleeding because I can go into the eyes.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go back to the guest because this is.
Hello, Larry.
Silly. Hello, Larry.
Hi, Lola.
We're having our own apocalypse scenario here at the station today.
I didn't need 2012. It's here today.
You're ahead of your time, Lola.
August 4th, 2009.
Gee, I've heard that somewhere before, Larry.
You've made her blush. She's the Millennium Woman. So, sun flares, all kinds of different things that could happen coming from space. I'll even throw out, interstellar invasion. Why not? Which you probably won't go into, but let's go back into the storms on the sun. What exactly?
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that because that's, as I said, the crux of what we really do face. And I didn't know much about sunspots other than what I learned from Dr. Remy, the scientist in our company. So I decided in September 2005 to attend a solar physics conference sponsored by the University of Colorado, which has a satellite called SORCE, SORCE, which is a solar research satellite. And This seemed like a pretty good conference, and they're going to have about 100 solar physicists from pretty much all around the world, and heavy-duty institutions and like that. So I figured I'd go and learn. As it happened, that conference occurred right at the end of one of the craziest weeks ever recorded on the face of the sun. Pure coincidence. It wasn't predicted. They hadn't been scheduled to go observe an eclipse or anything like that. And during the breaks, I'd run and go over to spaceweather.com or NASA at science.gov and see that yet another massive outburst happened. And the readings were going up the scales, and they kept updating and revising upwardly their estimates of what was going on. And this is particularly interesting because the period had been predicted to be calm. It was kind of like a record-setting blizzard in July. And what made matters even more interesting was that this again, September 2005, was right after Hurricane Katrina and just before Hurricanes Rita and Wilma. So one of the stormiest periods ever recorded on the face of the sun was also one of the stormiest periods ever recorded on the face of the Earth.
Do you think it was feeding, the sun was feeding maybe some energy to these storms, or is that a theory?
Yeah, it seemed like that there was some sort of feedback loop, and don't discount the possibility that the Earth can also affect the sun. We think of the sun as this almighty, obviously much larger and more powerful entity than we are, but it's also because it's gaseous, it's much more subject to being disturbed by gravitational other pulls than the hard rock and heavy water of the Earth.
Well, hey, Larry, what was the correlation time between the solar flares and then these storms?
Well, the solar flare, the week of the solar flares just followed within 4 or 5 days Hurricane Katrina.
Wow.
And preceded within 8 or 9 days Rita and then Wilma. And of course, that week on the sun, it was a wild week, but then the sun was still, to use a scientific term, discombobulated for several weeks thereafter. So there was plenty of overlap, and it was and what depressed me was that there was no discussion, none, of what was going on the sun at the solar physics conference. I mean, I not even in the coffee breaks, not even at the dinner, not even at the little cocktail party, and I couldn't believe it. All the scientists had come to present the findings they'd worked on, and they sort of planned to do, and they each discussed their own work and others' work, and it was never mentioned. And I thought, this is strange. Several months afterwards, the entire newsletter of the SORCE committee, which is the basic publication of that group, was devoted to that week on the sun. So it wasn't as though they didn't consider that week remarkable. It's just that they had no real-time response to this.
That is odd.
It is odd.
The sun's like, don't forget about me. Bam, slap us against the head,
Yeah. And it really got me because here you had a gathering of about 100 of the best minds in the field.
Well, what exactly were they talking? What was the focus of, what was the thing that people were talking about at the water cooler?
It was a variety. It was really, what they've been working on. One of the things that they did talk at the water cooler that they didn't talk about in presentation was the effect of solar cycles and increased solar activity on global warming.
Mm.
And I noticed that buried in page 4 of this little brochure they gave out to everybody who came in, it was intended for laypersons like me. It said that increased solar luminosity over the last 150 years has accounted for 30% or more of global warming.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa, wait a minute. Why are you burying that fact? I mean, global warming is kind of a hot topic these days.
And I see what you did there.
I can tell you why. Because there's no money to be made if it's an outside reason.
Yeah,
we can't really do anything to the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sorry, Lola, go ahead.
Well, no, they're making a fortune off of us, and with this green initiative, blaming everything on us. If somebody came out with concrete proof that it had nothing to do with man gases into the atmosphere and are chewing up of the rainforest, which of course I don't like. But, if it could be proved that it was indeed the sun, there's nothing that can be done, and all these politicians and nobody'd have a leg to stand on.
It's really interesting. I'm going to be devil's advocate with you, and I'm not doing it just to give you a hard time, because my next book has 2 chapters, each with the opposite theory on this. But let's say they're right that a third to a half, something like that, of global warming is just purely cyclical, has to do with the sun. And would that give us more or less reason to cut back on that portion which we are responsible for?
Well, see, I happen to, knowing humankind, we would say, because there are people that simply don't agree with the thought that man is responsible for this. So I'm afraid, yes, we would go back to the old ways and completely continue to pollute the earth and eat up all of its resources. But on the other hand, if it's not entirely man-made, then why make this huge push, which is costing just the little guy tons of money, for something that can be dealt with over a time period, when that you're dealing with, something as concrete as the sun's reactions and what it's doing to the atmosphere.
It's a fascinating debate. It really is, because the cost of capping emissions and things of that nature may indeed prove huge beyond any expectation.
Yeah.
You're right. Who's going to pay for it. I mean,
Us.
we all are.
Yeah.
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 And that was the one thing that was going, that was going on at the water cooler that wasn't being presented. And I asked why. And the expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
The scientists were saying that they felt that the polluters would seize upon, or this again was off the record, but it was, a feeling from just one person. The polluters would seize upon this fact of the sun being partly or wholly or whatever, to some significant degree responsible for global warming, and derail all anti-pollution efforts. And I thought, you know what? The scientist's job is to provide the facts, not to distort them to make, or to hide them or highlight them to make policy.
Right.
You guys are great at providing the facts. I would have never known this. No way of knowing it. But it's not for you to make the policy. And I think there's some really treacherous stuff going on here. And again, in with all good intentions, or maybe not all, but lots of good intentions, good people. And to follow this up, I began to look into what do solar flares and the increased activity of the sun, what could that lead to? And Nick, just before the break, you had me talk about Yellowstone a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And I was saying Yellowstone's in the red zone, meaning if something were to influence it, it is poppable. Forgive the gross analogy, but think of it as a super red hot pimple. Pimple hits a certain point when it can pop, and it doesn't mean it's going to pop at that moment, but it's in the zone, and Yellowstone is in that zone. So I was interested to know what might be the relationship between solar flares and volcanic and seismic activity, such as might occur in Yellowstone. So in 2007, I went to Acapulco, Mexico, the great place where they held a conference, thank goodness. And the American Geophysical Union, which I've been going to their meetings on and off for 20 years. I adore the American Geophysical Union. It's a great body of scientists, and they are the past masters of knowledge on just the basic functioning of the geological functioning of the Earth, and they know more about natural disasters and events than anybody else. I love them. And they had invited a scientist from India, Dr. Samitra Mukherjee, who has a controversial theory to the extent that solar flares can stimulate volcanic and seismic activity, volcanoes and earthquakes, in areas of the Earth's crust where there's lots of metal. His idea is that the electromagnetic radiation comes shooting in from the sun, is conducted by the metal in the crust, and in some areas of the Earth's crust have a lot more metal than others, and it's conducted down, and it, basically triggers eruptions. And so I wanted to meet this man and talk to him, and he was denied an entry visa to Mexico. Lord knows why, I don't know. So I finally chased him down back in India over the phone, and I said, well, what's the outlook for 2012? Because that is the next climax of these blasts, and he'd been furiously doing research on their effect. And he said, I'm an atheist, but my recommendation to you is to pray.
Wow. Okay.
Now, let me get this straight. Let me make sure, because I have in my mental, a picture, almost like the sun is kind of influencing the tides of magma and stuff underneath the earth, and is pulling it more or less out of the earth. Is that kind of the same idea?
Yes.
Roughly, layperson trying to put my mind around that.
Yes, except your metaphor makes one think of gravity.
Sure.
And he's talking more about electromagnetism.
Yeah.
Well, kind of like the hotel in Colorado, where there's so much electromagnetic activity because of the crystals and stones that it's built on.
Sure.
So if this is firing off electromagnetic energy, places that have an awful lot of materials that conduct that are going to blow up, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's it.
I feel proud.
Good job, Lola. Because in my mind, I can see it sort of happening, and I don't want to. That's scary. That really is. I'd like to know why they denied him a visa.
I'd like to scare y'all a little bit more.
Thanks, Larry.
So there was the strange coincidence between the solar flares and hurricanes Katrina, Rita, and Wilma, and there's a lot more in that, a lot more evidence that has since been discovered. But just there's that. There's the possibility of the solar flares influencing volcanoes and earthquakes in certain areas of the Earth's crust. But then the kicker, the report that changed my life, and being 55 years old, I don't really expect my life to change dramatically anymore, was when the National Academy of Sciences held a symposium on severe space weather, they called it, solar flares and the like, mostly solar flares. They held a symposium in May 2008 and published their results in December 2008 to the effect, warning that the entire North American electrical power grid, as well as others around the world, but they're focused on our nation, is at extreme risk from solar flares. And that if we were to be hit by solar flares of the magnitude that hit in 1859 or 1921, or even a little bit less than that, 180 million people will be without electricity, and therefore without fresh water because the pumps are electric, food, basic communications, basic essential services and medicine for months or years.
Well, I know our electrical grid is so out of date, and that was one of the things that, the Obama administration had been talking about, that was something that needed to be addressed and addressed now. It's so fragmented in the first place. Didn't we have a huge blackout in the eastern part of the country just a few years ago, and it paralyzed portions of the mid-Atlantic states?
Yep.
And there's no contact out or anything when that stuff like that happens. It's scary.
Yep.
Teenagers will go insane. They won't be able to text. Oh my God.
Then we'll have mobs of people in the street going LOL, and it could be disastrous.
Yeah. My God, they may actually have to talk to people.
Yeah, but when they get thirsty, they may have a hard time finding water after a few weeks.
Nobody's prepared for something like that. And our survival skills at this point are nil. Everywhere. I mean, I couldn't survive without. I'd be trying to drink the river, and that'd be deadly.
I know what you mean, and it was amazing. Apparently, we had a little wake up call, but we slept right through it. In 1989, there was a geomagnetic storm, a space weather solar blast storm that knocked out Hydro-Quebec, the utility in Quebec and also northern New York State, for about 9 hours, and I think it was 3 million people lost their power, and that was that was quickly restored, and I'm sure you could calculate some economic damage out of it. But it, basically it didn't. It disrupted us for less than a day. But it was the kind of wake up call that we should have heeded and didn't, because ratchet the power of that storm up a little bit, and the power could have been down for weeks or months. Yeah. And I read this. It's a 150-page report by the National Academy of Sciences, which is the closest thing that we have to Supreme Court of scientific opinion in the United States. And this is not Larry Joseph, spoke to some guy. This is down there, is open, and I worked with one of the scientists. I've of course followed up on this report for my next book, which is coming out next year. And he's no lightweight. He's worked in the power industry for 25 years. Testified before Congress in 2003, and another one of those coincidences, he happened to be testifying on it with Halloween Day, and there was a severe solar storm that hit us, known as the Halloween storm 2003, that didn't hit North America too badly, but it hit South Africa, knocked out 14 transformers, which is a lot of transformers for that country, and plunged their utility industry into like 5 years of chaos, because it takes it takes 1 to 3 years to manufacture a transformer, and there's generally a 1 to 3 year waiting list for these things. Oh, and it really affected their society, but because they're South Africa, nobody pays that much attention, or but again, that was another wake up call. It was farther away, but it was much more devastating. And he testified before Congress. They listened to what he had to say. They directed the Electromagnetic Pulse Commission to begin implementing his remedy, which is actually not that technologically difficult or that expensive, about $200 to $300 million, which is a lot of money, but not
not anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the Electromagnetic Pulse Commission was defunded in late 2008. So
great.
And it turns out, if the man is correct, and he's certainly got a lot of backing on this, that there's a simple program. It's placing ground resistors to protect the transformers that would essentially save the whole power grid from solar blast. Here's the way it works. Solar blast hits the Earth, comes through, it hits the crust. The electromagnetic power goes into the ground, pops back out of the ground, and shorts out the transformers. Well, between the ground and the transformer, you stick these little resistors that divert or soak up this energy, and you're safe, or you're a heck of a lot safer than you were. It's not strange new technology.
Kind of like a solar surge protector.
Yeah, or a lightning rod.
Yeah. But here's the problem, and it goes to what you were saying before, Lola, that the electrical power grid is such a crazy, quote, entity, and it's governed by private, semi-private, public utilities and states, and it's not like run by the federal government. There's no one authority that can demand that the power grid change its ways. It's a big legal and political battle with a lot of turf and a lot of pride and a lot of money involved. Yeah. The federal government's the only one who could spearhead that change, and they could probably do some emergency declaration, but that will only come if there's an emergency. You know? And John Kaplan is the name of the scientist I've been working with. He would like to prevent that emergency, and it's a remarkable story in the making. And I hope, I don't actually believe it, but I hope that we can head it off rather than having to suffer something of the magnitude that the National Academy of Sciences says we're going to suffer.
Now, Larry, when was the last time Americans headed something off? Don't we always wait? It's like, closing the barn door after the horses run away.
Yeah.
We do it this recession and the financial collapse and everything that came with it. It could have been averted if people had paid attention, and B, some real lessons could have been learned from this. And instead of that, we're putting ourselves further and further into debt. I feel terrible now I don't have any grandchildren, but they're the ones, Nick's kids, are going to have to pay for this whole mess that we've gotten the country into.
Somebody showed me a book the other day, Surviving the Coming Depression. I was like, oh, well, that just get published 1998. I mean,
I know.
It's someone asked a question on the forum, and I think this is something all of us are probably thinking in the back of our heads. Taldor says, so best question, is there actually a point to surviving all of this?
Well, pray.
I mean, is there anything good that's going to come about? I mean, I know I've read a lot of stuff, we'll all be awakened, psychically, and we'll be in harmony and, at one with everyone, and everybody will be happy, and
we just won't have any drinking water.
We just won't have any drinking water or electricity. I mean, is there some good to come out of this, do you think?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think that, I've got young kids too, and I am constitutionally incapable of being pessimistic on their behalf. So it may speak more to the limitations of my imagination than anything else. But yeah, I mean, people made it through the Depression and the Great Wars, and there's God forbid we have to go through anything like that, or World War III, that could definitely precipitate from such levels of social disruption. But there's always swimming in the summer, and ice cold beer. And...
Yeah.
Hey, Larry,
if we can get ice.
Back about the Maya calendar and that. When my mother used to always say, because we're Christians, she used to always say, you can tell the end of the world's coming. You see it in the Bible. It says at the end of times, disasters will be happening all over the world. More and more frequent.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder, and I'd like to know what you think, is that happening, or is it just that with the worldwide communications that we have in today's age, that we hear of everything that happens? What do you feel about that?
I think that there's kind of almost a codependent process here, because I've asked myself that question a lot, and it's a good one. Certainly, the growth in our knowledge of disasters has grown more rapidly than the disasters themselves, and so has led us to to make some false assumptions about how bad things are getting. But that said, we've got there's just more people at risk. Basically, everybody living on or near a coast, and that's I believe a slight majority of the world's population, a good 3 billion anyway, are more and more at risk as we saw with the tsunami, and just in general, it's easier to target large cities on the coasts, and I think that there's more disaster to be had because of the immense population density. Have we moved into the Book of Revelation's final stage scenario? No, I don't think so. But it's.
Yeah, I think we just hear about it more.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think we hear about it more, and I also think that there are more people here with the opportunity, and I say that in quotes, to suffer.
Yeah.
Right, in harm's way.
Okay, well, we're running out of time here. It's been a lot of, I want to say, fun.
Well,
a little scared. Some
it's
crazy
really
things
interesting.
out there. It is very interesting. It's
the fact that there's science to back some of this up is what really makes it intriguing.
It's one of those sobering things. Everybody, it's ended. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, there's stuff out there to back it up. But if you want to read more about this, get his book, Apocalypse 2012. I know it was flying off the bookshelves where I worked. Link on our website to it to buy the book at Amazon, or you can check out his website, apocalypse2012.com. Thank you very much for coming on the air with us, Larry. We'll have to get back in touch with you when your next book comes out. What do you think that's going to be?
Thank you for having me. That's going to be May or June.
May or June? All right, very good.
Great.
What's the name of the book going to be?
Apocalypse 2012, The Aftermath.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm just a fun guy.
I love these sequels. Well, thank you so much, Larry, for coming on with us today.
Nice talking to you all.
Nice talking to you.
Take it easy.
Take care. Bye.
Well, that was interesting.
Lola, you think anything's going to happen?
The solar flare thing, that's a distinct possibility.
Well,
and I
just...
didn't have the opportunity. John called and wanted to know if anything was ever said when NASA fired off, slammed a rocket or something into the sun.
Yeah.
And, they had a lot of plumage at that time. And, could some of this be,
our own fault? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Listen, that's got to be some guy.
But I know.
I know. We get a missile. We fire it at the sun.
Yeah.
They talking about nuclear waste shipping it into the sun.
Yeah. Oh, that'll
be fun.
Yeah.
Well, actually, our next guest is going to be talking about John Teeter. I had to go back online to remember exactly. He came from the year 2036.
Yes,
So maybe. Not
he
the
could
next
tell
us. He has the
guest,
answers.
Scott.
He can tell us.
We'll know what happened afterwards. So
I want to know tomorrow's lottery numbers.
Right. He already left. Teeter did.
Oh,
That's unfortunate.
Yeah,
I tried to email him.
I can't win for losing on this
I wanted to know
stuff.
who won the Super Bowl for the next couple years.
Well, seeing as God tells Saul, buy a ticket.
All right, we'll be right back on AM 1600 WKKX. This is Whispers and UPRN. Almost forgot that one.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be back. Enjoy the creepy music.
Now it's time for Whispers, your number one source for all things paranormal, with your hosts, Jordan Klein and Nick Queen, and produced by the lovely Lola Miller. Whispers is brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours at the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville. Unforgettable, historical, educational.
Did you go with him?
And we're back to Whispers on AM 1600 WKKX and UPRN. If you'd like to call us and talk to our guest, telephone numbers are 1-866-514-1600 if you're out of the area. And in the area, 1-304-214-1600.
Very good, Nick.
I forgot about it last time. I got so mixed up last time. It was crazy.
It's okay. How long have I been doing this? And I still get the numbers screwed up. So don't worry about it.
I tell you.
Don't worry.
So how's everything been with you, Lola? I never got a chance to ask you that. We always ask, at the beginning of the show, and everything was going crazy.
Was
I think I knew the answer earlier, so that's why I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Looking forward to next week.
Next week you're going to be going on vacation.
Vacation, yes.
Going to spend some days on a lake, I hear.
Yes, going to Detroit. Going to visit with family. Spend 4 days on the lake. Go to.
Well, you going to be on a houseboat?
No, but
we're not going to mention the name of the lake just in case you have some stalkers. We know a lot of people out
Lake
there.
St. Clair. It's big. They can't find me.
Yeah.
And we're going to a Tigers game on Saturday night. And
better than going
who
to
they
a
playing?
Lions game.
The Twins.
The Twins.
Yeah.
It's better than going to a Lions game. I just want to make sure you heard that.
No, we are going to the station's going to a Lions game. They're playing the Steelers. The Steelers are going to be in Detroit. So we're taking a bus.
They're going to let you. No one even asked me if
I was going to say, what about us?
Well, we haven't posted the thing yet. I mean, I'm going
Darn
regardless.
you, John.
But, yeah.
I'm shaking my fist at you. No.
So you figure you already know that the Steelers season is 1-0. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's my hapless Lions. Yes, but they teach you how to be humble. I mean, and when they win, I have every right then to rejoice mightily.
Well,
yeah, it's
you think
terrible.
They'll win a game this year?
Yes, they can't. It's impossible to go 0.
I'd like them to win.
No. It can happen.
I'd like them to win just on Thanksgiving.
It's not impossible.
Yeah, I know.
One time on Thanksgiving in my life.
Wouldn't that be sweet? Well, that's why I've always said I will hawk everything I own, maybe even the dog. If the Lions ever would go to the Super Bowl, I am going because it truly is a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence.
1957 was the last time, right?
Yeah, we've never been.
I was raised in Phoenix, so I know what that is like.
I thought there was.
They didn't even have Super Bowls.
Then they traded,
57.
whatever, the championship game, and then they traded the quarterback, and I can't remember the exact. Supposedly he cursed them. You'll never win for 50 or 60
Oh,
years.
you're thinking of the Boston Red Sox.
Oh no, there's a lot of curses. I'm gonna look that up. I think
we broke
that's actually
that curse.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
right,
we
let's
have
go
our
actually
guest.
to our guest.
Oh,
yeah. He's probably thinking, what in the world are they talking? Wrong sports. What? Our guest, our second guest today is Mr. Scott Norwood. He's the director and producer of Time Travel Zero, documentary about John Teeter. John Teeter's a man who showed up in online chat rooms saying he's from the future, from 2036. Scott, you with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have to ask this question. Our last guest was talking about 2012, which is the end of the world, or the, apocalypse. Did John Teeter say anything at all about 2012?
No. I think the closest thing to his world annihilation theory was the World War III of 2015. I believe that was the date that he said that that the bombs were gonna drop.
Now the bombs are going to drop. Who's exactly dropping? Are we dropping one, or
does it matter?
I think we're trading. Everybody's going to trade nuclear weapons that day.
Mutually extortion,
North
destruction.
Korea and Iran and the United States. I think that's what his story kind of went about saying.
Huh.
Then how did he make it to live in 2026?
36.
36.
He's even further. Yeah.
Well, according to him, there were certain areas that didn't receive fallout, that didn't get hit as bad as other areas. I mean, just on common sense, I would say that the government would be, our government, their governments would be going for the largest cities to take out the greatest amounts of populations in those cities.
Now, where exactly was he at when this happened?
I believe he said Florida.
And everybody's going to flock to Florida.
Yeah. And supposedly now his family lives in Omaha, Nebraska.
Now this is, of course, his family, like his
grandparents,
great-grandparents or grandparents, or is he alive right now? I mean, how old was he when he came?
He was 37, I believe, when he came. So he was born in 2000, 2001-ish, so he's probably about 8 or 9 right now.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Lil, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm just Scott, give us some, because I know nothing about this guy, so kind of give us his biography here.
Sure. Back in the 2000s, if you recall, we didn't have so much instant messaging, one-on-one talking. You had chat rooms. We had 25 people in one room, and you were trying to talk to 5 people at once and see if they were talking to you. And a man named John Titter came online, user handle time travel _0, claiming that he was from 2036. He claimed that he had come back to get an IBM 5100 computer. We'll go into that a little bit later.
Okay.
Because that was an important computer, what they needed to do and with some of their programs in the future.
Okay.
A lot of people tried to ask him who would win the Super Bowl, and he wouldn't say Detroit Lions, but
nobody would say Detroit Lions.
Yeah, he actually wouldn't answer any questions like that. The only questions he wanted to answer and stuff that he wanted to talk about was what we needed to do as a people to make sure we didn't end up in a civil war or another nuclear war or anything like that, that we could actually prevent it by being good and acting right, and not having to go through those things. And that was pretty much what he'd stuck to. A lot of people asked him how he time traveled. He had a C-204 unit is what he referred to it as, that could be placed in a trunk or the back of a van, and pretty much whatever was in its vicinity would get time traveled with him. It was a pretty quick process. He said it was approximately 1 second to every 10 years of your time, however far back you were going. If it was 10 years, it would take about 1 second. If you were going back 50 years, it would take about 5 seconds in the parallel universe or whatever the transfer was called. I don't remember all the details about that, but the main thing I think where most of the people started thinking that the guy might actually be true was he was on Art Bell's show. Art Bell had heard of him and had asked him some questions, and got some quantum physicists and some scientists to ask him some questions on certain scientific theories, and he answered their questions, and I believe he stumped one of them with one of his own replies. And that's kind of where people go, oh, okay, this guy's real. He knows what he's talking about. He's, ball with that. And his story really didn't change. It kind of stayed on the we need to be better as a people, as opposed to the lottery number is going to be, or the Super Bowl winner is. He was keeping more on a real social issues instead of
yeah, just money making things.
Exactly.
Hey, Scott, did people see him face to face then?
We have rumors of that. I've gotten a lot of emails since people have found out about this.
Well, you were talking about
we're putting together.
The doctors, the scientists quizzing them.
Oh, the doctor. No, I believe they were when they were all congregated with Art Bell. I believe they were talking to him online. And most of his online chatter, a lot of his online chatter can be seen at johntitter.com. That's usually where I go if I want to find out much about him. There's quite a few websites. If you Google the John Titter name, comes up with endless amounts of things to find.
I'm not really a computer whiz, but weren't they able to trace his chat room thing? To find out where it came from or who owned it?
Yeah, I've heard that. And a lot of the stuff with John Titter is I've heard, I've read, I've seen posts. So none of it can really be verified because I'm taking information that I'm learning as people are emailing me or stuff that I'm reading on other websites. That it was tracked down to a place in Florida, which is where he claimed his parents lived when he was young. And supposedly he had gone down and met with himself as a young child and his parents for a while. And so that could have easily been why his IP address was found in the Florida area.
That'd be a weird meeting. I don't know if I'd do that.
See, once again, that goes back to that bothers me when even television shows or movies try and do that. Go against the paradox of seeing yourself when you're time traveling. It just that just bothers me. Do you believe this? Do you believe that he existed?
Well, I know there was somebody writing this.
Well, I know, but do you believe he was a time traveler?
I would say it would almost be dumb of you to say that we as human beings will never be able to time travel, because 10 years ago, if you said I could take a picture with my phone and send it to my mom and she'll have it in 2 seconds.
That's true.
Like, whatever.
Yeah, you're
right.
You're
the
right.
time traveling technology is a little past the cell phone, but then again,
Exactly, yeah. But
it's coming.
But at the same time, you have stories such as the Philadelphia experiment. Some pictures that I've seen from random people taking it at the Oak Ridge nuclear facility. Pictures and stories that I've heard of all that stuff just makes me think, I would be willing to bet that if anybody had come up with it, it would have been the U.S. government. Would we know about it? Absolutely not.
Yeah,
it would
you're
be
right.
extremely detrimental if it fell into the wrong hands. You could change everything.
You could change the course of history 1,000 times over.
Now I know he posted pictures of the actual time travel, the machine. You said the code for it. I couldn't remember exactly.
204.
Okay, there we go. You got that one down.
Yep.
And he also posted a picture of a laser. He shot a laser, and it bent due to the field. That was another picture I remember he posted. Is that correct, or am I getting that wrong?
I don't know that I posted a picture of the laser.
Well, not
think
you.
I
know he
seeing
did.
That picture. Oh, okay.
Okay, I was not you. I know he did, because I've read a lot of these. His chats and what he said. People saved them. What exactly question did he stump one of the physicists on? Or
I have no idea what the formula. I barely made it past algebra. I was really good at geometry. I was great at geometry. But on the quantum physics, I'd probably have to take a pass on that.
Okay. All right, well, let's talk about then your DVD, the movie that you've been working on, the documentary, which is called Time Traveler _0, using his chat handle.
Yep.
This follows the story of a lady named Chris McCarthy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what was she trying to do? She was investigating this. What was her purpose in doing that?
I think we did. She sat down in front of the camera one day, and I listened to her. We were shooting what we thought was going to be an intro, possible intro to the film, and it was just kind of her sitting down saying why she wanted to do it. And she had kind of come to a point in her life where she realized that man can be a virus to the earth. She was very into the green way of thinking, peace, love, and harmony type of person. And she got word of the John Titor person thing story, went in to see what he was talking about, and decided that she wanted to do a documentary on it. She wanted to make a film. She wanted other people to know about him. They heard about him through some friends that were similar minded to her beliefs, and she wanted to be able to try and get the word out there to other people about what he was doing, what he was saying, and what we could possibly become of ourselves if we didn't listen to what he had to say. She, lined up interviews with different types of people, some scientists, people of knowledge of quantum physics, stuff like that. In fact, they were so smart, and I so didn't understand those those interviews that we had to put animated graphics to them. And as soon as I saw the animated graphics to what those quantum physicists were saying, it made a whole lot more sense to me.
Cartoons make the world better.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'd probably be like, I need cartoons. I understand this. Now,
yeah, but I think overall she was wanting to get the message, John Titter's message out there, the positive side of what he was saying. Try and find him, try and talk to him. She got online, made some contacts with some people and people that had talked with him, and eventually got to chat with him online, and the rest of the movie goes on from there. But it's a roller coaster ride, listening to what some of the people have to say about him, listening to some of the experiences, listening to some of those things that he said to them and what it meant to them and how it came true in their lives. And then on after the film was made and the emails that she got, the people she talked to about it, it's really made a change in her life for the better. And mine too. I'm working on seeing the footage and seeing how all this stuff goes down and listening to what the other people had to say. It's a very intriguing fine line between the John Titor and the government realm.
Okay.
We'll get into that.
Well, Scott, I'm on John Titor Times. And when was he supposed to have been here? 2001?
2000 to 2001. I think where I read it from the Post, they started in like November-ish of 2000 and then ended somewhere around May-ish of 2001.
Because in his reminiscence from 2036, he said that in 2005, there's a 10-year civil war in the United States. Now, that obviously hasn't happened, at least not war. I mean, we certainly have had some civil unrest.
Now, we were arguing about President Bush there. That almost caused some wars.
Well, that's true.
And the whole election issues, I mean, I don't think that, I was thinking the war he was talking about was going to be like bloody guns and battle, stuff like that, not an intellectual war, but most of the people when I've heard that question asked is they will be very quick to say, well, John came back and he warned us of that, and obviously made an impression on some of the people who would have ended up helping start that war, and he changed our timeline for the better.
Well, I wonder if the writers from Jericho used any of his ideas or suggestions, because reading through this, it sounds like that show Jericho with Omaha becoming the capital of the United States, which I think that's what happened with on Jericho.
Well, I think it's awfully funny. A lot of the times the stuff that you will see in Hollywood studio movies eventually become true. Go back to the movie War Games.
Yep.
You had Matthew Broderick, the 16-year-old kid in Seattle, and he could put his telephone on a little button and he's into government computers. No, you couldn't ever do that with a telephone. Well, now it's beyond the telephone line. Now we're using our cable DSL lines.
Yeah.
We don't need lines.
Able to get in. Yeah, exactly. But back there in '83 or whenever the movie came out, that was okay. Whatever. That's Hollywood. This is just a movie.
Never
be able to do that.
Well, Scott, what chat line was that he was on? What was it? What was the name of it?
I have no idea, honestly. I really don't remember much about chat rooms now that they've been gone for so long.
All I know is I used to get on a tattoo one.
Yeah, I remember somebody had said that he went into one that was about time travel. You know, all these people debating the theories, and here he comes. He's like, well, I am from the future. And there'd been a lot of people, supposedly, that showed up saying, I'm from the future.
Art Bell? Was it not an Art Bell?
It was an Art Bell, one of his forums or chats or whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody else had, pretty much, proved as a hoax, but nobody could prove him was one. They tried, and it was hard.
Sounds like the movie K-Pax.
I've never heard of that. I have. Now, Chris McCarthy, going back to her, she was actually, we've been talking about the government and, Civil War and all this, and she was actually approached by the government, and they didn't like what was happening.
No, we've got that part on film too. She got a call from her doorman, the person working security at the front, saying that they'd come up and asked for to come into the building, get into her apartment to talk to her, and he called her and let her know in advance. So she set up a camera and hid it behind some pillows in her couch on her living room.
Good for her.
They asked her some questions, and she told them the truth. I mean, she was like, "Yeah, I've chatted with people, talked to them," and I think at that point, that was when she had one of her scientist interviews come in and get online with him and ask him some scientific questions, and he did the same thing with her, answered most of the questions she had, and stumped her. And then it goes on a little bit later, a few more interviews later, and then you'll see them actually approach her while the cameras are on and she's about to go into an interview. They're just doing like a setup shot, letting the audience know who they're about to talk to or whatever, and they come and knock the cameras down, so to speak, put their hands in front of the lenses and take the tapes, and she goes back and gets another camera, puts another tape in, keeps on going. She got a
tough lady.
She was not going to let the government tell her she couldn't film anything, and so they took her tapes. She got new ones, did some more interviews, and it was pretty much going like that. And what part of the government, what department was this? That's one of the areas where I'm not supposed to
discuss
talk much about.
Well, now because and if you don't mind my saying, this is something that's happening to you now, correct?
Yeah, we had originally gone under company name A as we were putting this together, and had been company name A for about 7 years. Mm-hmm. And just this week, as the DVD was being released, I got a letter from some lawyers saying that if I continue using company name A and continue doing business as company name A, that I would be prosecuted upon.
Now, did they give you any reasons, or
what's that?
Any reasons about this?
No, I saw that as one of those battles. I remember when I was young, there was a little song, you come to a rock, you can't get over it, you can't get around it, you can't get under it, can you go through it? And there was all options. This is one of those rocks that I wasn't going to try and blow it up. I wasn't going to try and run into it head on. I'm just going to walk around the law and the laws that they said that I'm not supposed to be doing, and I'll do it a different way, which is still legal. Mm-hmm. And we'll be able to put the DVDs out there until they find another way to
block
put another law injunction on me to try and slow it down, I guess. But there's always ways around. There's always a loophole somewhere.
What exactly? And this is something I'm trying to get my head around. Why don't they want? What are they afraid of, I guess?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, if the wrong hands got the right information about time travel and were able to make their own machine, they could go back and wipe out whatever they wanted to.
So you're saying the government actually believes that this could be very possible that this man was from...
Well, even if there was like a 25% chance, 10% chance that somebody could come up with something, I think they would be right on top of it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I can understand
they were governing it, that they were on top of it, that they had all the information possible. Because, I mean, you're seeing in the news right now what John Titter said is we'll be in a nuclear war with North Korea. Well, back in 2000, they weren't studying nuclear. They didn't have nuclear capabilities.
Neither did Iran, I don't think, if I remember correctly.
But they're processing it right now, and Japan's been testing it underground and all that stuff. And all the news you've been hearing about the government in Iran and the protests going on because they think their elections were faulty. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I'm not there. I don't know. But It's an awfully strange newscast to be going on right now about this time. The same thing that's going on with North Korea. And I just read on the news today where Clinton ended up going over there for a quid pro quo meeting, and the two reporters that were jailed
he got him
supposedly been released.
Yeah.
So
he apologized.
That's definitely good news. I mean, that's a step in the right direction, but at the same time, I still don't trust them.
No, because I look at what they get. they certainly weren't going to do it out of the kindness of their hearts.
Yeah, I know, and the fact that love Clinton to death, but what did he have to offer him? What was it? It wasn't a, hey guys, I'm that cool president. Remember me? Why don't you let them girls go and come home with me?
Yeah.
I just don't see Kim Jong being that type of political leader.
No,
Maybe he played the sax for him, and they all
free
jammed.
lunch. Yeah, I don't think there's ever a free lunch. Let's go ahead and we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk about the IBM 5100. Why the heck would somebody come from 2036 to get a computer from the 1970s? That
was a good question.
That's a good question, and that's one of the ones. Yeah, we'll get back into that. You're listening to AM 1600, you're listening to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 and UPRN. We'll be right back.
The former West Virginia Penitentiary housed some of the most violent criminals in history. Many of the prisoners who lived there also died there. It is known for being one of the most bloody institutions in the United States. Don't miss your chance to experience the former West Virginia Penitentiary. Your tour will consist of an astonishing 90 minutes that offers an awesome history, a touch of art, cold hard facts, and an education of the justice system. Tours start 11 a.m. Tuesday through Sunday. For more information, go to www.wvpentours.com or call them at 304-843-4146.
And now back to Whispers, brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours.
Lola, behind you.
I'm not falling for that one. I did the Bloody Mary in the mirror, so I'm not falling for any of that.
I was proud of you for that. I wouldn't have done it. Welcome back to Whispers on AM 1600 and UPRN. If you'd like to ask a question about John, I don't know if I'm saying it, John Titer, I'll have to ask. Just call 304-214-1600 or 866-514-1600. We're talking with Scott Norwood, director, producer of Time Travel Zero. Are you with us, Scott? We didn't lose you?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Am I saying the name right? John Teeter? I think you said it's different.
I always say Titter.
Teeter.
Yeah,
okay.
I've heard people say it was Titer because they believe his last name's an acronym for time, travel, or.
Oh.
Yeah, I've heard lots of different.
Am I saying it completely wrong?
No, I mean, Art Bellard says it Teeter. Another interview that I had said it Titer.
I think I'm hearing it because of Art Bell, because that's when I first heard about it, was Art Bell. So I'll go with Art Bell then. I like Art, so there we go. All right,
He's a good friend.
Yeah, we're good. Now, IBM 5100 computer. A lot of people ask him, why the heck would you come all the way back for that? It's an intriguing story. Can you tell us something about that? What are you looking for?
Well, supposedly the IBM 5100 was the first personal computer that IBM had tried to put out somewhere back around 1974-ish. It cost about $10,000 when it came out. It was about 50 pounds. It was a huge computer. If you may have seen pictures of it, and I'm doing a little research on John Titter, but the reason it was important to him was because it had a working reversible binarial capability, which modern computers don't have. What that means is modern computers run forward, just like a clock. They go forward, they count forward, everything is in a forward motion. The IBM having a working reversible binarial capability, meaning it could run forwards and backwards, which supposedly the year after, I think it came out 74, 75, IBM switched it and made a 5110 model that didn't have the reversible binarial code, and everything they made after that had the regular binarial code.
Now, why would they take that out?
I'm not
if
sure.
You know, I put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they knew really what they had at that time, or maybe they did. But according to John Titter, that was what they needed in order to help the Linux systems, which I believe had something to do with the programming of the time-traveling device.
Did he get one?
I don't remember seeing a post where he ever answered that. Now, that's a very good question. I didn't even think to go in there and do some research on that.
You'd think, though, my biggest question, why didn't he just go back to 19... Or what did he... Okay, wait a second, let me think. Did he go back to the 1970s and then come back and stop here, then go back again, forward, or...
Yeah, I do remember thinking, I read something about that he had been back to the 70s and then came to the recent times. And the only reason I could think of why he would have done that is in discussions I've had with some other people.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, well, if it costed $10,000 back then, he would have had to come up with $10,000 of that currency instead of the currency from this time, which would have been printed in, 1994 or whenever. Instead, he came to this point in time where you could get one for $5 because somebody had one sitting in their garage or whatever.
Didn't you know what they had?
Okay, I guess.
eBay.
Yeah, I guess I could buy that. That would make kind of sense. I wouldn't realize what they had or whatever. But I also got an email from one person after one radio station interview saying that IBM kind of denounces the 5100 and that his cousin worked for IBM at their headquarters. And inside their headquarters, they have a small hall of fame of computers that has computers that they've made throughout the years in this little hall of fame, and the IBM 5100 wasn't in there. Supposedly this cousin went to ask one of the upper echelon managers or bosses why the IBM 5100 wasn't in there, and he was told it wasn't any of his business. He didn't need to bring that question up to anybody else. He needed to drop it and leave it alone and go do his job, which I thought was interesting as well. If IBM had made it, why would they be not displaying it? Or if it was the first personal computer, and from the pictures that I saw, that's exactly what it looked like that people were using it as. It used kind of quarter-inch 8-track tapes that wouldn't hold nearly as much as what your email box will, but that was back in the day, and so any kind of memory space you could have was great. But
now, was IBM possibly working maybe with military contracts at this time?
I think it was a year or two after that IBM got their military contract, and they started making computers for military operations. So there again, there's another strange occurrence that they don't claim the 5100. They only made it for a year, and shortly after that, the government picked them up for their IP jobs, I guess.
Oh, okay. Now, Chris McCarthy. Now, is she still working on this story itself? Is she working with you for this documentary?
Yeah, she is. She is. She's not so much on the editing side, which is what we've been doing since we've got the footage. That's pretty much where I've come in as the director, getting the right editors in, make sure we tell the story the way it needs to be told, and keep it interesting. And it wasn't really hard to keep it interesting, but you got to make sure you have everything in a certain order so the audience understands what's going on. But yeah, she's definitely still in that same mind frame of the teachings and lessons that John Titter had brought about. And
well, let's talk about those lessons. What exactly did he want? What was his purpose in coming? 2000, 2001. What was he trying to change?
I think he was trying to make the world a better place. He spoke of in the future that race wasn't an issue, that it didn't matter what color you were, as long as you could support your village or your township, get food, be a positive member of society, then it didn't matter who you were, what God you worshipped, what color you were, where your ancestors were from. You were just a person, and you were still alive, and you were contributing to bring everything together to help keep everybody else alive and keep going. That they'd spent a lot more time with their children. It was more of a community-based atmosphere for children to grow up in. Money had, I think what he was trying to get was that money was not in a stock market fluctuating state anymore. It was a solid set price, so to speak. And the overall, most of those changes had been made because so much of the population in the world had been destroyed by the nuclear weapons that they just had to kind of get down to the nitty gritty and do the grind and get what you could with what you had.
You know, my biggest question, or my biggest problem, I guess, with the teacher story that I've always wondered is, he's on in 2036 he's supposedly with a core of time travelers, and you would think that he'd maybe get in trouble for stopping and trying to change the future. Maybe perhaps that's something that you're not allowed to change. Don't even attempt it. Did anybody ever ask him any questions about why? How are you getting away with this, or should you be doing this? Anything like that?
I don't remember reading any posts. I mean, other people were. Are you talking about questions from the grand population that he was discussing with?
Even that, or even just the fact that he's trying to manipulate or change the outcomes of time itself. I mean, you would think that would be something that they would try to prevent from happening.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think I would imagine, on logic sense, if you were part of a military recon unit that professionally went back in time to get something or retrieve something or even to change something, I would believe that there would be certain rules and regulations to it. And I would think they would purposely send back a team of people so that one person couldn't branch out and be the thug rebel and make drastic changes. Or
I like thinking of him as the thug rebel.
Yeah. Knock your father out of the way from getting hit by a car so your mother didn't fall in love with him and you disappeared in the pictures like in Back to the Future.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just upset he didn't come back in a DeLorean.
There you go.
At
least choose a Lamborghini or something you can still drive.
Exactly. I mean, geez. I'm also something else, and when you mentioned it earlier, it's been staying in my mind a little bit. That fact that he's, his family is actually in this time. Have you had any interaction at all with them, or?
No, I guess Larry Haver, the Titter attorney, has contact with them, and that's where I had heard that they were living in Omaha. In one of the interviews that I was in correlation with him, he mentioned that they moved to Omaha from Florida, and they were keeping themselves distant from the public eye, out of the media. They didn't want to have much to do with that. They were just going to lay low. And
I know Lula had said that that's where the capital of the new United States, so that maybe they're kind of getting maybe they
jump on the housing market.
Exactly, and when I was something else when I read this morning, he mentions two different cities, at least from what I was reading. Jacksonville, Florida would be hit, which would be something he would know since he lived in the Florida area. And Washington, D.C. would be hit with the nuclear weapons.
Yeah. There's been lots of movies out there. I was just thinking about, what was it? Was it the latest James Bond film? No, the Angels and Demons movie.
Yeah.
Where they went to CERN, and it opens up and they're in CERN, and they're creating antimatter. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? But it was just a little part of the film. Didn't show you. I mean, that wasn't the whole basis of the film. It was, plenty of other stuff had to do with the Bible and whatnot. But then I saw the trailer for 2012, and there's plenty of things in there that looks like stuff that Titter had talked about. I think there's quite a few movies that have little bits and pieces. I mean, even movies that have come out since Titter has been here or made his claims.
Well, Angels and Demons, that book was written back probably right around 2000, I'm thinking. That was the first book in the series. It was Angels and Demons? Yeah. And then the Da Vinci Code followed it, but they made it in reverse when they did the movies.
Gotcha.
Now, you're saying that his family lives... Where'd you say they live at?
Omaha.
Okay.
Omaha.
if I'm mistaken, I'm not sure, but are you saying that he's a 9-year-old kid living there right now?
I think that would be the age he would be now.
Well, I remember reading from he mentions in one of his posts that he was fighting with the this has been a long time since I've read this.
Diamondback Rebels or something like that.
Rebels. It was in 2011, which isn't far from now. Fighting, he was 13 years old, fighting, for this group due to the Civil War, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they were like state militias.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, that it's even then at that point you're thinking, maybe something has changed because now his family knows that and they're now moving to Omaha. And so things do change. Perhaps maybe splitting off parallel universes where his would go. It's a lot to think about. It really is.
Yep.
Because like Lola was saying during the break, even if the fact that the government's even looking at this means that there's something perhaps to it that they're scared half to death of.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, just looking at it logically, the idea that somebody if somebody came back from the future, they would be if they found out about it, they'd be so on top of that person, have him arrested and quarantined, and
he could maybe not even be John Teeter. I would have changed my name.
Well, I would think that
a lot of people think that was the case, that wasn't really his real name.
Yeah, the time traveler. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I would think the government would be sitting right outside his house right now, even though he's only a 9-year-old kid.
Yeah, and I talked to plenty of people that had conversated with me after they found out about the documentary, and they had quite extensive talks with John Titor while he was here online, and every one of them claimed that once they started talking to him, they started actually looking around and they saw what they believed were government vehicles sitting in their neighborhoods, same van parked in different places, the same type of stuff that you see in movies. That it's a blacked out van, blacked out windows, whatever. Somebody sitting inside with tracking devices or bugging phones, whatnot. I've had other people claim that after talking with him, he gave them some information that one of them woke up the next morning and went out to his shed to get his lawnmower out, and there's a plum tree that had grown in front of his shed, like in front of his shed door. Like it had never been there before. He couldn't get his lawnmower out because the tree had grown up in front of his shed. Are they
planting the tree to? I'm trying to get my mind around that one.
Getting.
Did they planted the tree so they'd have some shade, so you couldn't see them? That's what I'm seeing. I don't know.
I'm not sure what they're trying to say. I'm sure they're trying to have saying that he's done something to their timeline by giving them some information or something like that. Because another woman claimed that she had bought a car. It had a cassette tape deck in the car. It didn't have a CD player. She had her tapes in the car. She's conversating with him one night. She goes back out to her car the next morning. She has a CD player in her car with tape cassettes still in her car. No CDs in her car because she didn't have a CD player. And I was like, are you sure you didn't?
I have never heard that before.
Another person claimed that the Burger King sign used to have green letters, and when they woke up the next day, after talking to Titter, it had red letters. And as long as I've known, Burger King sign had red letters.
Okay, let me try my best to get my mind wrapped around this.
Yeah, this part really...
I know.
Yeah, perhaps he's got a field going with him that's changing things.
Yeah, you're saying he was doing this to the people he was talking to. He was changing their seat.
Or perhaps whatever's coming, that around him or surrounding him, perhaps is this kind of side effect of time shift.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the best I can get my mind around it. And it's hard to talk about time travel stuff. I mean, because
it is confusing.
Because if he really is a time traveler, if he comes back here, no matter what, he's changing something.
Yeah.
I mean, because and therefore he might, maybe we would have went into war, but now he said something that changed it.
All you have to do is change one person's reaction to one incident, no matter how small it is, and it changes the course of everything that happens around them.
This is my problem with the Terminator movies.
Effect.
Yeah.
The butterfly effect.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the danger in time travel too. I mean, coming back and it can be one insignificant thing that's changed, but it changes everything surrounding it.
That's why Obama's president now.
That movie Back to the Future, I think that's what I was trying to show you, that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. bumped into his dad, and then maybe he wasn't going to live through the whole situation.
Yeah.
And like I said, you see so many other movies that the technology is, that's whatever. This
is why I would have stayed away from my family.
Lost. That's the prime example of all of this, is Lost.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'll be thinking about this all night
now. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. If only John Teeter was here.
I know.
We could have a lot more. Yeah. I want to just real quick. You can reach where the heck's that link? You can get your movie at IndieFlix, and that's FLIX, INDIEFLIX .com.
That's correct.
Okay, I have that link up on our website. Your website to check out more about this is timetravelzero.com. That's zero, not O. And then you're going to also be your film will be, you'll probably be there too. The Washougal International Film Festival. That's coming up when?
That's coming up on August 14th. It's being shown at Friday at 9 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah, so
where is that?
Got the prime time slot. That is actually a suburb of Portland. It's on the Washington side of the Columbia River, but it's still pretty much an outskirt suburb of Portland.
And I just want to put this warning out that you are having some interference from spooks. So if you want to get the film, get it as quick as possible before it goes. I mean, because it might not be here.
Yeah, not paranormal spooks either.
You should start calling somebody. And there was some a book I was reading where a guy would call. And this is actually a real story. He would call somebody every day and say, this is just your dutiful son playing kick the can in Portland, just in case. So somebody knows if all of a sudden you don't make the phone call, we need to start checking up on stuff.
There you go.
And they're probably going to come after me tonight. So, it's been a great talking with you. We'll have you back on to find out what's happening, to make sure you're still safe.
Good.
And
hopefully it's not a jailhouse interview.
Hopefully not. They probably won't let you. You probably won't be going to a jailhouse.
Yeah, they'll have me locked up underneath the Pentagon.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. We'll find some way to get something into you. Just beware of baked goods.
Yeah. Either that or we'll be knocking on the wall, learn Morse code.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
But thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Thanks for having
brother.
me.
Lola?
Yeah.
Okay, honest about when you first read this morning what we were having on, what did you think? I mean, and I know you're going to be honest. Do you think it's going to be not him himself, but the story itself going to be pretty much
I'm not convinced. I mean, what gives it the most credence to me is the fact that the government is trying to block it.
I was going to say, that's the only thing that I think that changed, because, I mean, it's hard. Part of me wants to believe it, but part of me...
Well, if he had been right on his predictions, now he did say something about the 2004, 2008 elections, and yes, they were contentious.
Yeah.
But did it result in a civil war? No, and you can't even say that it resulted in any type of even a passive type of civil change. I don't. So am I buying that we had a civil war? No.
Well, I was confused about the family. Do they know? I mean...
Yeah, how'd they find him if Titter is a pseudonym for something else?
Well, he's supposed, from what I understand, because I've read about this.
But I mean, have they admitted that he came back and talked to him?
They hired a lawyer to keep people away from them, and they moved because of it. Because supposedly what happened, he came, from what I understand of the story from reading it, he went back in time to the 70s, picked up the computer, and on his way back he stopped, at our time period, and stopped to see his family. At this time he
kind of like going down Route 66.
Yeah, and then he stopped, started posting on the forums, and then he disappeared after a couple of months, going back, the rest of the way back to where he needed to go. During this time he told them, what was going to happen, and I didn't realize they had moved, but... Well,
but how'd they even find his family? If Titter is just a name that he came up with, how would anybody else have found it?
Trying to, like he said, looking through, trying to figure out the computer logs, trying to...
That's how they found him, was through the computer.
There was different ways. I can't remember. It's something I'm going to have to read back on a little more about that part.
Yeah.
It's all out there though. If you go to Google, type in John Titor, it's Titor. You'll find a lot of things.
Wikipedia doesn't have much good to say about
it.
I'm just
What I'm gonna because I've been in contact with someone, the guy that's over the John Titor Times. He wants to come on the show, so I'll book him in a little bit, and maybe we can get some more answers because he's actually been in contact with John Titor or Titor. I say Titor because, like you said, it was Art Bell said that. That's what I heard at first. So we will return with more about this. It's one of my favorite topics just because it's one of those. You start going down and it does.
Yeah, see, I think our first guest.
That's an interesting.
That is really intriguing.
We're going to be getting some more 2012 too because that's something else.
Book 2.
I like all this stuff. This stuff's weird. It's fun.
Well, think about it. 2012. Who knows what's going to happen? If you make it through that, then you got 2015 to look forward to.
We're in all kinds of trouble.
Now, what did Larry say? He said that the solar flares could cause some real havoc, which could start social unrest. So if you have that in 2012, and then all of this other upheaval is happening socially around the world.
That's right.
But now
in 2015,
John Titor said that the reason for what happened in 2015 in his postings was that there was severe overpopulation and increased social unrest. That the reason that these regional conflicts started happening, which resulted in everybody going nuclear. So
it's scary.
It is. And with that depressing note, we need to get out of here before the solar flares take out our cars outside. I'd like to thank Lola for being here, helping me out without Jordan. Next week, we're screwed. Lola won't be here, but she will return as long as she gets off the lake.
Yes.
And thanks, John, for coming in, sitting in with us. So that's Whispers.
We'll be back.
Yep, don't be afraid, only believe.